Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Nyambura and I make content on home, garden and lifestyle. It's been a while since I actually did a video on the garden where I'm aware, and we're going to go back to the garden very soon. But today, before we go back to the garden, I want us to talk about something that is affecting the whole world, and it's affecting you and me, even whether you feel it or not. At some point you're going to feel it, and that's food security. So recently I attended a function that was organized by an organization called Root to Food, and we're trying to see why is it so hard for us as Kenyans, or even for us as Africans, to feed ourselves, yet we have about 60% of arable land. Like, we can grow our own food and feed ourselves. Our land is enough, but we are not able to do that. Every year, every 2 years, there are a good amount of us starving. Actually, statistics show that in Kenya, about more than half of our population spend more than half of their income on just food. So what that means is that if that person earns daily and they're not able to go to work every day, then on the third day they are going to starve. They are not going to have food to feed their families or to feed themselves. And that's really alarming. That means we are not food secure. We don't have food reserves to even feed ourselves. Recently, you realize that the food prices have gone high. Ugali is now very expensive. One packet of unga is going for about 220 shillings. And that's very high. It's the highest ever as a country we've ever been. Cooking oil is almost out of reach. Actually, cooking oil is more expensive than petrol in Kenya. So it's really alarming, and we need to come back and talk to ourselves and talk to each other about what we can do, or what actually we can contribute to one's food security, securing ourselves and even those around us. And some of the things we were looking at in that event were, why is it that Kenya is not food secure? I may not exhaust this project. I may not exhaust everything about food security, but today I want to focus on things we can do as individuals. I, as a person, what am I going to do? And you also can go down in the comments and commit to do at least one thing to make sure that this country, your community, my community, is food secure, so that you are not begging people to send us food every year, every season, each and every time we are crying there's no food, there's a drought, serikali saidia. Before we call on serikali to saidia, what are you doing? What can you do and what can I do? So some of the topics we discussed in that event, one of them was food wastage. So sometimes we grow enough food to feed ourselves and to even feed our communities, but there's so much of it that goes to waste. So what can we do as individuals, or even as organizations, especially if you have a chance to lead an organization? What can you do to help your community and even the country to be a bit more food secure when it comes to food wastage? What steps can you take? And one of the things we realized you can do effortlessly and even at home is food preservation. So if you're a food grower like me, or even if you're not a food grower, you even buy your own food. Do you preserve food? How much food do you throw away? Then we went back a step further, and we realized what contributes to food wastage is actually post-harvest food handling. Once food is harvested from the farm, how is it handled all the way to your kitchen? Whether you're buying it or you're growing it, how is this food handled? And then we realized the other problem we have is food transportation. So if we can try in my own small way, to make sure that, one, food is not transported far before it is well preserved or well packaged, to make sure that it reaches the destination when it's in good condition. Let's take an example of cabbages. When cabbages are harvested in the farm, usually they're just thrown in the lorries. You've seen those lorries carrying cabbages. They are not even anywhere near to clean. That's also another thing contributing to food wastage. So if we harvest our cabbages, we don't care how they are transported. They reach our market when they are contaminated. They start rotting as soon as they reach the market. We find heaps of cabbages in the market. And so that's food wastage, contributed to by post-harvest handling, and poor transportation. So what then can we do? We may not be able to buy refrigerated trucks, we may not be able to do that, but we can actually lobby organizations and governments to help regulate how food is transported, so that food is transported in safer trucks to go to the market in a safer way. It reaches the market when it's still clean and in good condition, so it can stay longer. That's just one step. The other way is to empower farmers to preserve this food. Cabbage can be turned into sauerkraut. A quick check in your supermarket, you realize a can of about 200 grams of sauerkraut is about 500 shillings. So if you grow organic food, you know how hard it is to grow organic cabbage. And then it gets to waste because we don't handle it properly and it's perishable. So if we can train people, and I'm actually taking that initiative on myself, I'm starting to hold trainings and help people preserve their own food. If you grow cabbages, you don't need to sell all of it. You can turn it into sauerkraut. It's a very simple process. And then educate your communities to appreciate this food. It's actually healthier. It has more probiotics and it's healthier for your gut. So you can turn your cabbage into sauerkraut that reduces transportation, that reduces post-harvest handling, and that reduces wastage. That way you are helping your community to be a little bit more food secure. You can also pickle your cabbages. If you grow kales like sukuma wiki, spinach, you can dry them. So if you have excess, instead of selling it at a throwaway price, just solar dry these kales and turn them to powder or even flakes. And then just pack it into packages. I've seen people doing that, the initiatives, and I truly appreciate those people who are doing these kind of jobs because it's contributing to our food security. So you dry the kales, and then when these kales are transported in dry form, they reach the consumers in a better, they are better because once they are dried and packed well, they reach when they are cleaner, they stay for longer, they are less perishable, and so this food can be eaten for longer as opposed to just taking fresh kale, loading it into a truck, transporting it, and then it reaches our market, it's already turning yellow, it's already so withered, or it's crushed, so we cannot buy it. So if we can value add or preserve this food before it goes to the market, we increase the value of the food, we increase how long this food lasts, and also we increase how far this food can go. So that's another point. That's something you as a farmer or even as a person who sells food can do to improve food security in our country. The same can be done to meat. Meat can be dried and transported in dry form. I have seen people who do that. I know someone who sells dry meat in town, and it fetches more money because it can stay for longer. You're not worried about it going bad. Also, we need to change perspectives about food, myths and misconceptions that, oh, I cannot eat refrigerated food, I cannot eat dried vegetables. We need to look at that because for me, I would argue it's better that you have dry food than have no food at all. So if you dry your kales, you are better off eating dry kales than just eating ugali without kales or eating food without vegetables. So change how you look at food. Yes, when food is preserved, some nutrients are lost, but it's better to have food with lesser nutrients than to have no food at all. So please embrace the culture of preserving your own food. Let's say you live in the city and you buy your groceries every day. Did you realize that you spend more money by buying fresh groceries every day because you argue you cannot eat refrigerated food, you cannot eat frozen food? You need to change your mind and buy this food in bulk. And you can even buy it from the farm. You just take one day, you travel to someone who grows your vegetables, you get them in bulk, you come, you steam them, you blanch them, you freeze them. That way you have food for longer, you save time that you used to go to the market, and also you save this farmer transporting this food to the market, and that way you are not rushing to the market every day. So you give an opportunity to someone else who is not able to preserve food. So if you can preserve food, please preserve. You're contributing in your own small way to food security, not only for yourself, but even for the others. Because imagine if all of us are rushing to the market every day, the pressure increases, the prices rise. But if some of us have preserved food, which you can eat when there's scarcity, then we reduce the pressure in the market, and so more people access more food. Okay, so the other thing we can do is canning. I have done some canning on tomatoes and chilies, and I think I have shared that on my other social media platforms. But this is an old way. It's been practiced for so long, and you can can almost everything. So please just acquaint yourself. As a person, if you can access this video, you can access information, please go ahead and try to can some food. It not only saves you money, so you won't be crying about food prices when everybody's crying about food prices. It also helps the farmers, because if all the tomatoes that are thrown in the market, if they reach the market and a good number of us buy them and can them, we reduce the amount of wastage that happens in the market, we reduce the amount of food that goes to the landfills. And also, after canning this food, we need also to go out to our communities and educate them. If you can influence one person, like I'm doing to you today, 2 people, 3 people, to appreciate preserved food is not totally bad food, especially if it's preserved in safe ways, like canning, like fermenting, like pickling. Then that way we encourage more people to take responsibility of their food and also to take food more seriously. So when you preserve your food, when you can your food, it might lose a bit of nutrients, especially if it's cooked. But my argument is always, either way, you would have cooked these tomatoes. So if you can your tomatoes, doesn't make them any less than the tomatoes you've put in your food and cook them down. So let's embrace these ways to, one, cut down the food prices. Because if I have a whole pantry full of canned tomatoes, I don't rush to the market. Imagine we are 100 of us, 200 of us. So the food in the market then serves the few people who may not be able to do what we are doing. But still, we have also to keep encouraging them to do the same. This way, we reduce the amount of pressure that is on the food that is in the market, and so the prices don't go as high. Even as I say these things, I am not absorbing the government of all the blame. I know the government has a lot to do, and the influencing food prices at the policy level is the work of government and even other organizations. But I'm just talking about what you and I can do before we even start crying serikali's idea. It's just us trying to take positive steps and trying to remain as positive as we can the way we look at our food, instead of just joining the complaining club. So I hope I have helped 1 or 2 people, and I've encouraged a good number of us to start preserving food and start appreciating that the reason why we are not food secure could be just because we don't take care of our food. We just waste a lot of food. I know there are other factors, but this was one of the things that I intended to talk about in this video. In the subsequent videos, then we will be looking at how we can influence food at a policy level, how we can influence food at community level, how we can help our communities to diversify food, especially like in Kenya, maize is a staple food. So what if we don't have maize at all? Remember the fall armyworm? It affected our harvest, and that probably affected the food prices. But what if we take other food other than maize? We look at cassava, we look at bananas, we look at potatoes, we look at food differently. All these foods give us starch, but we are so focused on maize that we don't want to diversify. So diversifying our food choices will help us to be more food secure. We will be looking at these topics in our subsequent videos. So please remember to subscribe, like, and comment on this video. And always remember, if you have a vision, add some passion. I'll see you in the next one.